Let me try to sell you on the new game in development called Splitgate. I personally absolutely adore this game. I played a lot of the early Halos, and that's kind of what this feels like. It feels like a sequel to it. And what I would say the reason is it's kind of an indie game. It's made from fans of older games and people from other development studios. And I really see this beta as kind of being an interesting thought experiment. Because it really feels like Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, while also being not that franchise. Let's kind of get into it, and keep in mind, this is a beta. It's gonna have different things. It's not glitchy, it's not buggy as like Battlefield 1 or Battlefront 2. It's not like that. It's more like its own selling point. Game modes are the basic run-of-the-mill FPS games. You got King of the Hill, TDM, Domination, Capture the Flag, whatever you want to call it. And it's not really reinventing the wheel. Like, there's ones from the Halo franchise, Call of Duty, kind of what the modern game development for FPS has developed into. And depending on it, it's going to be like Halo, so you're going to look at having 2 weapons to start off with, and some modes have pickups, like rocket launchers, but it does depend on like what game you're playing, and especially just how you're going to play it, because in my opinion, a lot of the games that you have, you don't really need supplementary weapons, just how the combat and the ability works. The combat itself kind of mimics like OG Halo, where you've got your BR, your Magnum pistol, etc., etc., where you have all of the reticles and all of that. There's a few tweaks, like instead of having the being shot popping you out of the sights, that's no longer a thing. But that isn't really what you want to talk about with combat. The selling point, in my opinion, is going to be A, the improved mobility with the institution of everyone having jetpacks, even though their fuel is comically limited, and portals. This is where their line, Halo meets Portal, comes from, where basically any one of these light blue surfaces can get a portal on it. You have a purple and a yellow by default, and they link up. You can see through your own portal. No one else can see through it besides you. And anything can go through it. Bullets, rockets, grenades, anything like that. Now, currently, the only grenades they really have are EMP grenades. Get rid of portals. Nothing crazy, but it does help, especially since you can't see through other people's portals. If you're getting shot through, the best way to get rid of that portal is just EMP it and not deal with it anymore. And do be careful with these portals, though, because if they're flashing, that means a person is nearby, i.e. bullets are about to come your way because they can see you, you can't see them. So pre-fire anything that you see with this type of icon. I'm not completely a fan about this, but we'll talk about that later. Maps are really basic. You've got your cookie cutter, like esports type, where they're compact. They've got a left lane, center lane, and a right lane. Nothing insane. They also have some callbacks to old Halo games, and most of them are decent. You get them through basically, you pick your game mode, assuming you don't have one game mode only locked in. So let's say you get TDM. You then get to see 2 maps, like Stadium and Olympus, and then a random button. And that basically sets up the vote. And all of the maps really do work. I have issues with 2 maps, and I avoid them like I avoid Halo 5. And those 2 are Highwind and Foregone Destruction. Foregone Destruction is so bad that the fan wiki actually forgot to put it in because it's avoided so much. Now, I'm going to kind of throw my hat in with this beta. I'm going to kind of tell you guys what I see and what I feel for this beta. Not finished product. I can't predict the future. And I sure as hell, I'm not going to make any definitive statements, but I do want to go on record and saying I do really like the game. I see it having a vibrant player base if it's done right. If it's a botched advertisement, I feel like the indie game's just going to suffer for it. It's going to get a Titanfall 1 or 2 effect, where it's like people play it for 2-3 weeks. But I see a good player base and a good setup. I could definitely see this game becoming not mainstream, but definitely getting a loyal player base. So with that in mind, I just kind of want to go off on a tangent and just talk about how I see things. The general game plays a lot like Halo, and that's not a bad thing. I actually really like it because it feels like they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It feels like they're making a sequel to Halo. Like they're ignoring Halo 4, Halo 5, they're just cutting them out, and they're saying, all right, we're going to take Halo and we're going to add things new to it so this sequel's actually worth it. And you've got the portal system, you've got not new mobility, like they had stuff like this before, but it's changed around so it's more fun and competitive, especially adding in features from like Call of Duty, and they've got all of these different modes and they're putting it together. And customization with the little loot boxes that are standard now, where it's all customization and you can pay to support them, etc., etc. A lot of these do seem to be helping the community a lot. And I think that this could work really well. The only issue that I really have with the game when it comes to playing is mobility. Mobility is weird because, like, the jetpack works. It's not bad, but it's very, very limited. And especially with the mobility, because currently, this may not stay, there's no mantling, like, at all. So your legs aren't over that platform, you will fall to your death if you have no more jetpack fuel. Kind of stupid, but we'll see where it goes with that. I would say the best choice here would be actually to add mantling or something like that where you can get over that hump, because not having that is very frustrating, especially since the game punishes you on TDM or anything like that where kills matter for actually falling to your death. But to get really back on topic, the main issue that I have with the jetpacks is that they're so limited. Like, the boost gets you like 10 feet in the air, and it's very unforgiving. Like, just look at this clip.
Oh. Oh, no! No, I'm going to the gulag. No, Dad, no!
See how I kind of just fall off and there's no chance of me getting back up? Now, sure, look before you leap. You should know the map. I shouldn't have fallen down there in the first place. But it's so frustrating to just die from that, especially with that long fall. It takes you out of the game. It takes you out of it. I don't really have too many suggestions on how to fix this besides add more fuel. But one thing I could say, just as a balancing thing, if they don't want to add too much fuel to really get people in the air a lot, maybe something like a saving throw where you can basically just say, I'm about to die, and like double tap A, for example, and you get launched all the way up, you use all your fuel, and it just sends you straight up as like a saving throw, like I said before, where you don't have control of where you're going, but can actually get you back into the field. So not high risk, high reward, but it is a risk associated with throwing it up. So it's not making people stay in the air a lot more, because it's obvious they want boots on the ground with mildly intuitive mobility systems. So I can respect that. I just feel like they need to tweak how it works, because especially with a lot of the more open maps, that's the reason I have so many gripes with Highwind, is between like the portals and how the map is set up, it just feels like the jetpack isn't enough. Now, going on with playing and all of that, another issue that I could see is the fact that, like, especially in lower ranks or like when you're just getting started, the matchmaking's really scuffed because you have like a very limited amount of players to put in. So like my first few matches, we were dunking on everyone, and I could just feel that it was an imbalanced setup. Like, especially with cross-platform being a feature of this game, I just think that ELO and balancing is going to have to be really addressed a lot better than it is currently, because there's just games where it's like there's nothing but one-sided fights, where it's either left or right, and that's not fun. It's never been fun to have one side dunk on the other. The best games are the tightest games. Even if you're doing really well, if it's a blowout and you're doing really well, it's not as satisfying as carrying your team to victory through how well you're doing. And ELO balancing is a very big component of that. Obviously, weapon balancing, map setup, game modes, and how intuitively you give points and reward playstyles is going to fight into that. But if you really don't consult your matchmaking, you're going to have issues, you're going to have fallout. You've seen this in games before, which is why I'm saying at a beta level, you need to consult that before it releases to the game. Because if it starts off with a low player base, that's going to kill the player base right there. Having bad matchmaking, where you have champions playing against mid-tiers, or mid-tiers playing against newbies. You want to have those like setups. Even if you have to divide the player base a little, with cross-platform, you're going to have enough of a sample size or a pool where you can actually just balance it out. even if it means that there's going to be a bit of a queue time, because you have the arena. You can afford to have like a minute or two between gameplay because you have the arena mode where you can just dick around with your buddies. And sure, you don't want to have that between every match, but you could have like stay in match type thing features like Overwatch has. And I feel like that could remedy potential issues, snipping it before it becomes a problem. Speaking of which, there is one game mode and one issue I do see as kind of like a nitpick. This isn't really a big issue. It's just like Oddball. Like, I love Gridiron. I played a lot of it in different iterations. Like, you have Gridiron and Call of Duty World War II. That was one of my favorite modes to play. And Oddball is just, it doesn't work right. It's hard to put into words what. And I've talked to buddies that I've played with, and the general consensus is that the mobility system just doesn't work right for it. Like, since it's a half-breed between no mobility and futuristic jetpacks and all that, it's just the portals, especially, just make the system where you can basically run around the map for half the game. But it's just, it doesn't work right. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but it just doesn't feel like it's polished enough. Like, even when you played Griffball in, like, OG Halo 3, like, Source, it felt right. It was balanced. They were all melees, but there was no movement. It was just boots on the ground, not even jumping. You just had hammers and energy swords, and that's it. That's it. And I think there's going to have to be either rebalancing, more weapon drops, limiting maps so they're more attuned to having Oddball, because I just don't see it working currently. And it's not bad. It's not a bad game mode. I just feel like there's potential that other games hit more because they have a more defined movement system, a more defined map layout. And to get into one of the bigger issues with Oddball, there's something I refer to a lot, and it's flag juggling, basically. It's the new version of flag juggling, where the announcer's constantly, ball dropped, ball picked up, ball dropped, ball stolen. And there's just a lot of that announcer issue, where you're just like, dude, shut the hell up. Because I love having the announcer. He's a lot of fun to listen to. But it's like, sometimes you listen to it and you just don't want him to talk all the time. So maybe like cutting some of the chatter would definitely be beneficial. Especially in like games like TDM, where you play on a razor's edge between Team 1 and Team 2. I don't think there needs to be a tied lead line. Because it just really clutters up the noise. Now, given you don't need a lot of like audio cues in a FPS reaction shooter, where you're playing mostly off of what you see, not what you hear. But I do feel like just consulting how much you want the announcer to be talking. Because especially with him saying things like Killian Air, you just look at it and there's just so much audio that's going on between the game and your rifle and other players that there's just too much noise at times. And that, I feel like, could be an issue. And that's really all I have to say. That's my 10 cents, if you would. I feel like this game will work, like really well, even. But you kind of have to look at it as a development in progress, where now that the player base is getting up and there's the Discord and all of that, soul searching is needed. Where you define, are we going to cater to a smaller audience? Or are we going to make this AAA? And that's kind of why I want to make this video. My opinion on it. Hope you like this new format, kind of just messing around with it. We'll see how it works. But until next time, I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.